On February 6, 2023, Türkiye woke up to a devastating news. A 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck the country's south and southeast regions. Just hours later, a second quake measuring 7.6 hit the same area. The twin earthquakes became the most powerful natural catastrophe to hit Türkiye in decades. Around 14 million people, roughly 16% of the population, were affected. The UN reported 1.5 million were left homeless, while the confirmed death toll rose above 50,000 across 11 provinces. Help came quickly. After an urgent call, search and rescue teams arrived from dozens of countries, working alongside local responders in difficult conditions. Rebuilding was never only about replacing what was lost. It also meant fixing long-standing gaps and rethinking how cities function. 3 years on, despite setbacks and delays, around 455,000 housing units have been delivered across the affected regions. Southern Türkiye is home to a deeply diverse social fabric. In the aftermath of the earthquakes, cooperation at the local and national level played a key role in stabilization efforts, helping communities gradually move from emergency response toward long-term recovery. But the quake's destruction went beyond homes, schools, and businesses. It also tore into Türkiye's ancient past. For centuries, southern Türkiye has stood at the crossroads of civilizations. When the 2023 earthquake struck, that history was hit too. Across 11 provinces, mosques, synagogues, bazaars, and UNESCO-listed sites were damaged, leaving centuries of heritage at risk.
6 Şubat Kahramanmaraş depremleri sonrasında
After the February 6 Kahramanmaraş earthquakes, a large portion of our registered historical monuments suffered damage. We have 220 registered heritage sites in our region, and unfortunately, 100 of them were damaged in the earthquakes. Scientific committees were formed by the General Directorate of Foundations under the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, and in line with their recommendations, survey, restitution, and restoration projects were prepared.
Restitüsyon ve restorasyon projeleri hazırlandı.
Türkiye has since launched a nationwide effort to restore those monuments and reinforce them against future disasters. The work spans dozens of sites, from religious landmarks to marketplaces and public structures, using modern engineering to stabilize ancient stone.
İbadete ve hizmete açtığımız eserlerimiz var.
In the provinces of Kahramanmaraş, Gaziantep, and Kilis, we are prioritizing structural strengthening, using dowels, clamps, and injection applications to make these buildings safer for future generations. These monuments include mosques, covered bazaars, fountains, a synagogue, and a museum, various registered historical structures. We aim to carry out their restoration meticulously and pass them on safely to future generations. We have already completed the restoration of 25 monuments across the 3 provinces. Our General Directorate aims to complete this work carefully and thoroughly by the end of 2026.
Bitirmeyi hedeflemekteyiz.
While the loss was heavy, some sites showed resilience. One was the Zugma archaeological site just outside of Gaziantep, which survived the quakes with light damage to its ancient structure.
Evet, söylediğiniz gibi Zeugma çok fazla.
Zugma is not among the ancient cities that suffered heavy damage, only very minor issues. There were some shifts in the columns and things like that. Of course, those are being corrected over time. But these precautions had already been taken even before the earthquake, especially here in Zugma given its significance. Restoration work to strengthen the structures against earthquakes, such as reinforcing and repositioning the columns, had already begun earlier, with precautions raised to the highest standards.
Akademik çalışmalarda biz aslında
In academic studies, we already know that these earthquakes have occurred throughout history. Especially in 115 AD, a major earthquake struck Antioch, and the traces of this earthquake raised major awareness about whether similar evidence exists in the ancient city of Zugma. I can say that we have started to shape our research accordingly.
The February 6th quakes, although doing minor damage to Zeugma itself, had a direct impact on the archaeologists working at the site.
From Gaziantep, together with my colleagues, we went to the Elbistan Museum. The museum there had been damaged, so we collected the artifacts and transported them to the Gaziantep Museum. After that, we went to the Adıyaman Museum, helped recover and reorganize the display cases that had been broken there. We were also involved in archaeological work and other related efforts.
The ancient ruins of Zeugma escaped the worst of the February 6th quakes, but Gaziantep's most iconic landmark did not. Providing safe housing was the immediate priority, but the country also moved quickly to protect and restore what gives this land its historical identity. For centuries, Gaziantep Castle has risen, fallen, and risen again, surviving both armies and the forces of nature. The Gaziantep Castle, a landmark for 2,000 years, saw its eastern and southern bastions slide into the streets during the initial 7.7 magnitude quake. But as of early 2026, the scaffolding has finally come down. Restoration teams led by the Ministry of Culture meticulously recovered original stones from the debris. Before rebuilding, experts used ground-penetrating radar to map the limestone mound beneath the castle, filling hidden fissures with specialized hydraulic lime to ensure the foundation is stronger than ever. The castle is now fully restored, with the reinforced walking paths and stabilized ramparts. I spoke with archaeologist Mehmet Sait Yilmaz about how Gaziantep is using advanced technologies to restore the historic castle and preserve the city's unique cultural heritage after the earthquake. Sait, thank you for joining me. So we're in front of the Gaziantep Castle, and we will definitely talk about that. But before that, can you tell us about the city, the importance of the city from an archaeological perspective? What is the uniqueness of Gaziantep? How would you compare it to other parts of Anatolia?
The city of Gaziantep holds an exceptionally important place in Turkey, both culturally and archaeologically. Through research and excavation work, we know that its archaeological layers extend from the Paleolithic period all the way to the Republican era. One of the earliest known settlements is the Sharklı Cave in the ancient city of Duluk, which dates back approximately 350,000 years. For this reason, the Gaziantep region is recognized as an area of uninterrupted human habitation from the Paleolithic period to the present day. When we look at its position within Anatolia's cultural landscape, it is fair to say that Gaziantep occupies a very significant and unique place.
Yes, and going back to the castle, so it was damaged in the earthquake, and you were here after the first days of the earthquake. What did you see here? What was the damage? How much was it damaged? Can you tell us?
As you know, on February 6th, we experienced two extremely powerful earthquakes that affected many provinces, including Gaziantep. This was not something we had encountered before, and naturally we were deeply concerned for our families. Our first priority was to ensure their safety. Immediately afterwards, we went to the museums where we work because we are cultural heritage professionals. The first damage assessments focused on the artifacts on display, followed by those stored in the depot areas. Fortunately, none of our artifacts suffered any significant damage. Not a single piece was broken. In particular, at the Zeugma Mosaic Museum and the Gaziantep Archaeology Museum, none of the exhibited works lost their structural integrity. Of course, our responsibility is not limited to museums alone. Beyond that, we are also responsible for numerous cultural heritage sites. One of the most important among them is Gaziantep Castle, which is a central historical landmark in the heart of the city. Around the third or fourth day, driven by professional instinct, we went out into the field to assess the condition of these cultural assets. To be honest, we did not expect destruction on this scale. The damage was extensive. One possible reason is that the castle was built over a mound. When the earthen mass of the mound shifted, it may have amplified the damage.
So I can see the parts that have been renewed. It's not just any other structure, it's a historic structure. How do you preserve its authenticity?
Cultural assets of this kind reflect the historical texture of the region, spanning from the Roman period through the Ottoman era. When you look at the castle's ramparts and towers, the influence of the Mamluk and Ottoman periods is particularly prominent. One of the core principles of restoration is preserving the authenticity of the structure. To adhere to this principle, the towers and fortification walls were dismantled, brick by brick, using scientific methods, categorized, documented, repaired, and then reassembled in their original positions. Bricks that were no longer usable were repurposed in mortar and other structural areas, ensuring reconstruction that remained faithful to the original form.
You talked about the scientists you worked with. I was actually going to ask about the team you worked with. So there's archaeologists, architects. Who do you work with in such projects?
We worked with archaeologists, art historians, restoration specialists, and architects. Thanks to the collective effort of a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary team, the castle was brought back to life.
Did you use any new technologies that you weren't using in previous conservation efforts? Did any new technologies help you complete this project?
During the restoration process, work was not limited to the castle structure and its walls alone. The ground on which the castle sits was also examined using radar technology. This method revealed fractures in the subsurface beneath the castle, and additional precautions were taken after measuring the stability of different zones. In particular, the injection method was used to fill fractured sections without damaging the archaeological layers. This technique is not commonly used in restoration projects, but given the importance of protecting this historic monument, we mobilized every available means.
So hopefully there won't be an earthquake again in the future. But if such a thing happens again, what kind of measures have you taken to preserve this monument?
Hopefully we never experience an earthquake of this magnitude again. However, as you know, we live in an earthquake-prone country, and we must take the necessary precautions. One of the most important steps we took for the castle was reinforcing the ground. Another critical measure was mechanically interlocking the stones that form the towers and ramparts, effectively turning them into a single, unified structural block. Thanks to this interlocking system, the entire structure can now move together during seismic activity, increasing resistance and significantly reducing damage. Engineers have calculated that the castle has now been reinforced to withstand earthquakes of a magnitude 7 or 8.
The damage didn't stop at the castle walls. Just steps away, Shirvani Mosque, one of the city's oldest, suffered partial damage while its minaret collapsed. Further into the city, heavy damage to the Kurtuluş Mosque silenced its halls for months. But today, the restoration of historic sites continues across the quake-hit regions, including at Pürsefahan, an Ottoman-era lodge for caravan traders. In the heart of Gaziantep's old district, this 400-year-old structure once linked the city to vital regional trade routes. It's being revived as a vibrant cultural and artisan hub. Damaged by the quakes, the building is now undergoing a transformation to help preserve the neighborhood's spice culture. Gamze, thank you for joining me. So we're at Pürsefahan. Could you briefly tell us what this place used to be used as, its historical importance, and it was damaged in the earthquake? How much damage was there? Could you tell us?
Şu anda bulunduğumuz han 19.
The
yüzyıl
inn we're in right now is one of the most important 19th century commercial buildings. The city holds an important position in trade because it lies on the Silk Road. For this reason, many inns were built. Out of 32 inns, we are currently inside one of the 18 that have survived to the present day. This is the soap-making section of Kürkçü Han, essentially a workshop area. It was used for commercial purposes, both for storage and for accommodating traders, as well as for production. Sesame oil and similar products were produced here, which makes it significant. This building suffered damage after the earthquake, especially on the southern and eastern walls, where there were partial collapses. First, we took safety measures, and then we carried out repairs. The fact that this structure was damaged also showed that it needed reinforcement. We completed the reinforcement works on these walls. At the same time, radar-based assessments were carried out on the walls, and reinforcement was done using an injection system with specially prepared mixtures. We have now largely completed the repairs.
But the restoration efforts are ongoing at the moment. It's not completed. How will this space be used once it's completed?
Bu yapıda aslında bulunduğumuz yer hani ticaretin de çok önemli.
As I mentioned, the area we are in is a place where trade has always been very important. This is a spice district where spice traders were once very concentrated. In the past, there were also storage areas here. Wheat was stored here, and it functioned as a wheat market, with sections in the squares used as storage spaces as well. Inspired by this history, this place is being turned into a spice museum that tells this story. At the same time, it will also serve as a city museum, and the area we're in will be arranged as a museum of Islamic art, completing the site as a museum complex once all the work is finished.
So I know that the municipality provided spaces for shop owners of the Zincirli Bedestan, which is called the covered bazaar. How important is the reopening of such spaces? What does it mean for the city's identity, for jobs, for the local trade, and for tourism?
Tabii şimdi şehrin hep bahsediyoruz işte ticaret şehri çok önemli bu konuda.
Yes, of course. We always say that our city is a very important commercial city. In this regard, we allocated alternative spaces so that the tenants of shops under restoration could continue their commercial activities. They carried on their business there, and very recently, once the restoration was completed, they moved back to their original locations. In this sense, this was an important effort by our municipality.
How would you compare the current state of tourism to pre-earthquake times?
Turizm doğrusu şehrimiz için gittikçe
Tourism, frankly, is on a steadily rising trajectory for our city. Of course, in the short period we could describe as the earthquake and its aftermath, there may have been some declines, but our city is still in a good position in terms of tourism. And there's a tourism trend that continues to gain momentum. In this sense, the city's awareness is actually quite high, and it's important that tourism-oriented businesses and facilities continue to develop in this direction, especially boutique hotels. After the earthquake, we now have many boutique hotels. These are preferred both because people want to stay in historic settings and experience the atmosphere of these places. At the same time, boutique hotels have become even more popular after the earthquake. For this reason, we can say that historic buildings and sites have become even more reliable and safer after the earthquake.
Anlamında bu mekanları tercih ediyorlar.
So you talked about the teamwork during this process of restoration efforts. Did you face any challenges during this period, and what were the lessons you learned, professionals such as yourself?
Burada tabii ki depremin
There are certainly things the earthquake taught us. However, I think most of our buildings also passed an important test. The majority remained standing. Naturally, there were structures that required intervention, especially the castle and a few of our monumental buildings. We went through one of the largest earthquakes the world has ever seen, and we have definitely drawn technical lessons from it. In terms of how structures behave and in terms of structural engineering, statics, and strengthening knowledge, I think we have moved to a more advanced level. These techniques were already used in the restorations, especially in damaged buildings. But overall, I believe we have taken a better path and reached a better point in strengthening our structures and in being prepared for similar disasters.
İyi bir yol aldığımızı ve iyi bir noktaya geldiğimizi düşünüyorum.
And it's also important to preserve the authenticity of these cultural landmarks. So how do you preserve the soul of such a space while also trying to make it safer for the future?
Bu yapıların aslında yeniden
When it comes to the reuse and refunctioning of these buildings, we take into account their location and architectural qualities. I believe that many of the buildings we have put back into use have not lost their spirit, and that this continuity has been preserved. Considering the process we have been through, I also believe that the reinforcement works support this. There has, of course, been no situation that stripped a building of its character or spirit. At the same time as the metropolitan municipality, we operate by planning functions that will ensure the continuity of these buildings, especially for this particular structure, as I mentioned, by taking into account its surroundings and physical characteristics. We believe we have given it a function that will carry it into the future.
Geleceğe taşıyacak bir işlev kazandırdığımıza inanıyoruz.
Under the Roman Empire, Gaziantep emerged as a key stop along the Silk Road, the vast trade network linking Asia and Europe. Over centuries, the city evolved into a thriving commercial hub, shaped by the countless civilizations that passed through its streets. One symbol of that legacy is the 300-year-old Zincirli Bedestan Bazaar. Severely damaged in the 2023 earthquakes, the historic marketplace remained closed for nearly 3 years as extensive restoration and reinforcement works were carried out. Last September, the bazaar reopened to shopkeepers, residents, and tourists. Its return is more than symbolic. It's brought businesses back, drawn visitors into the historic core, and reaffirmed Gaziantep's long-standing role as a center of trade.
It was a terrible disaster for the region, the earthquake. For 3 years we spent time outside of the bazaar, and we had to handle the difficulties. After 3 years and the restoration, we got our shops again, and bazaar has opened. The business is okay right now. It's much better than before. So we all are happy, all the artisans and all the people working in the bazaar doing very nice right now. During the restoration, they repaired the walls, the air conditioning and lightnings, all of them. So we are having a better time right now.
3 years on, daily life has largely resumed across the quake-hit regions. Gaziantep's economy is recovering, and visitors are beginning to return. But the disaster raised a serious question: how to rebuild without erasing the past.
Şimdi ise sanat tarihi raporuna uygun bir şekilde deprem
Now, in line with art history reports and to preserve the monument's authenticity after the earthquake, restoration work is being carried out meticulously to return them to their original state. During the process, there may have been prior interventions, but whatever is stated in the art history report is taken as the basis. And the aim is to complete the restoration by returning the monument to that original form while preserving its authenticity.
bitirilmesi hedefleniyor.
Restoration work here is not about modernizing the past. It's about restoring what existed Historic sites are being repaired alongside new housing and infrastructure, under tighter safety standards. Preservation and preparedness are now being treated as part of the same task.
Beneath these stone arches, trade once connected empires, and today, life flows through them again. Shaken by the quakes, business is now back to normal. Across southern Türkiye, ancient sites are being rebuilt alongside homes and schools. A country devastated by tragedy is moving forward without leaving its past behind. I'm Zeynep Gökçe from Gaziantep. We'll see you next time.